when you're teaching a class, you have a syllabus, you got a game plan, then something, bam, Silicon Valley Bank happens, or bam, FTX happens. How much does that come up in your discussions at all?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Do you kind of just throw out a lesson plan and go, all right, let's talk about this Bankman fraud? Or just go, it's like, all right, here's what the government's gonna do with bailing out the banks. Here's what that means. And like, do you have this discussion with them, and how do they react to that?
Well, so my MBA, it's kind of two different responses. The MBA students know that I do things professionally. I comment on the markets professionally, and they kind of respect my opinion. So I mean, when the Silicon Valley Bank thing happened, a student emailed me and said, "Could you do a short presentation on Silicon Valley Bank for us so we can have a better understanding of it?" So the MBA student asked me to do it, and I did. And that's
great.
Yeah, I mean, I take a lot of satisfaction from that. That I'd be the person they'd think of. And at the undergrad end, there were several things that matched up with stuff that was already in the classroom. So I would pull that in and talk about. I don't want to over technically on it, but to the core, what Silicon Valley Bank did was they had a duration mismatch where their deposits and what they were using those deposits for that were supposed to take care of those deposits just had a gigantic disconnect. And it's a great way to explain why what I'm talking about in the classroom right now is important.
Yeah, like I had to go a deep dive into it. I should know these things, but I had to ask the question, what are bonds? Now, I know what they are. I know what they are now, but like, it's bonds, a term I always heard, but something I never actually knew or understood. So luckily, I have this podcast. I did think of you, Russell, but I think we already scheduled, and I needed something really quick. So I went with Steve Sosnick, which was excellent.
Oh, I love Steve.
Me and him did a very long podcast on the whole SVB bailout and the crash and what it meant, and it was like right after it happened. So that was very, very exciting. I'm glad I got to actually talk to him. I got these access to these people. So like your student, I'm very glad he reached out to you to get access, because they probably have questions. They want to know what's going on. What does this mean for them as students and as they enter the world? Did you get any pushback? Like when you like say, here's what happens, here's how it happens. Do you get any like, I think that's bullshit, and here's why?
Not from what I think my students are. I can be very loud and boisterous, and I think they might be a bit intimidated by me, so they wouldn't push back too much. But I mentioned I was out with some of the students that I had recently graduated last week. One of them just kept, wanting to debate me on everything about the markets, and he had not been one of my students, and he was only a year out of school. So I do get pushback. I mean, I do get pushback from people a lot, but typically not from my undergraduates. The graduate students, I'll get some pushback from them about things sometimes.
Are they more capitalist? Are they more kind of social democrat? The flaws of capitalism change this? Are they more burn it down? Burn your underwear, down with the anarchy? Where do they kind of lean?
Oh, my graduate
I don't want to say
students?
politically, but politically.
I mean, okay,
like how woke are they?
You can be like, socially liberal and financially conservative. I'd say all of them are financially conservative. And then the social, it's the spectrum.
So like they're bleeding heart capitalists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
it's
I mean,
and the reason that they're doing what they're doing is because they want to move up the corporate ladder.
Right.
And
you got to play the game.
MBA from Kelly is going to help with that.
Yeah. Say, listen, I hate the game. I hate a lot of things about the game of capitalism, but that's the game. And you got to play by you can't change. Sometimes it's easier to play than it is to change the rules. So it would make sense to me too. Yeah. Like, these guys and gals are just going to play by the rules. And listen, you can hate the system, but that's the system we got.
It's the system we got. Yeah. It's the game, and if you want to go try to play the game somewhere else, I think the games are more difficult in other places than they are in the U.S.
So that is
we're not great, but we're definitely not the worst.
It is interesting though. So from this small case study of this year, X amount of students, like people in my generation, you know, they want change. They want financial
Mhm.
change, but they're not going into those business, they're not going into those industries to do those changes. It's easy to say for a teacher in middle school to say, oh, we need to change capitalism. It's not a thing to go and get your degree in it and actually go and change it. The people who are going to
Yeah.
go into it is saying, hey, man, this might be bad, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not very hopeful for someone who wants change, like a social democrat.
Yeah. No, you know, the whole ESG movement has it's definitely moved what would be like the center for, you know, the financially conservative with respect to the social stuff.